everyone, welcome to the Ask a Bookseller event for London Bookshop Call. This is our first time doing this via video rather than on Twitter, which is quite exciting. And we've got various booksellers who are going to be answering some questions that you've sent us to recommend you some books. So at the moment, live here with me, I have lovely Katie, who's going to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about where she works and the kind of books that she recommends to people on a regular basis.
Hi, well, I'm Katie. I work in Foyles Bookshop in Stratford, which is in the Westfield Centre. So that's quite a busy bookshop. And I suppose my main areas of expertise are sci-fi and fantasy, general fiction in general, but I also enjoy reading memoirs, nature writing, and that sort of thing as well.
Perfect. That's going to tie in really well with a couple of the questions that we've been sent. So I'm excited to hear your answers
as well. I also love children's books.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah,
all sorts. All ages.
I should introduce myself as well because I am sort of a bookseller. I don't know. I always feel odd describing myself thus, but I do sell books online. We've recently narrowed our selection to specialise in just Folio Society and Persephone books, and then I do a monthly book subscription for indie books. So I'm a specialist in independent publishers, but I like books a lot. So yeah, I run Ninja Book Box, but as I said, I wouldn't describe myself as a bookseller, as I'm not a person that sells books day in, day out, if that makes sense. But anyway, so the first question we were asked was for recommendations for fiction books with a disabled character, particularly the main character, but the story didn't have to be about the disability. And this person's already been recommended the fantastic books of Elle McNicholl, I think probably by both of us in previous years. So they're looking for some other things. Do you have any suggestions for them, Katie?
I've got a few, depending on what genre you're looking for. There's some of the romance novels by Talia Hibbert, the Brown sisters. So there's Get a Life, Chloe Brown, Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and I've forgotten the third one.
The third one.
Eve Brown, and two of them. So one of them, Chloe Brown, has a chronic illness, and Eve Brown, I believe it is. I haven't read them yet, but they're on my to-read list. Eve Brown is autistic, and I'm very keen to read those see that representation in the romance genre and see how that's done. So that's 2 for 1 there, really.
Fantastic, yeah.
For children's book, there's a new one. It's a fantasy novel by Thomas Leeds that's just been published called Jayben and the Golden Torch, and it's probably for the age group of around 9 to 12-ish. But as I always say when recommending children's books, it entirely depends on the reader and their personal taste, their personal
preferences, and ability, and
I mean,
confidence.
I am not within the 9 to 12 age group, but I still love books that are technically for that age group. And so the hero of that, Jayben, has epilepsy from a brain injury, and he has seizures, he has amnesia, and he also has adventures, which
fantastic. Oh, I love
that. So
that.
that's another one. And then the third one that has come to my attention most recently, it's called One for All by Lillie Lainoff, and the idea is it's a sort of gender swapped take on the Three Musketeers. So the D'Artagnan character Tanya also has a chronic illness, and is also brilliant with the sword and swashbuckling and adventures, and
I'm loving that
sort of thing. So those are 3 that are on my radar. 4 if you count the 2 of the 3.
Oh yeah, we always like a 2 for 1 or 3 for 1 in that situation.
Kind of a adventure and romance.
Yeah,
and I think I think the One for All may have fantastical elements as well, but I'm not 100% sure of that because I only saw it a few days ago.
I'm going to look out for that, definitely. It sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it looks great.
I have a couple of suggestions, and I think one of them you've read. So I've got it on my TBR, and it's Harriet versus the Galaxy.
Yes.
Which is the main character is a hearing aid user in that, which it looks amazing. It's illustrated children's book, so you can probably say more about that because I think am I right in thinking you've read it?
I have, yes.
Yeah, but so I'm excited about that. And also one I have read, which has a character with OCD, is Am I Normal Yet by Holly Bourne,
yes.
which is the Spinster Club series. But that's the one of the three that is particularly focused on mental illness and mental health in sort of terms of sort of coming to terms with it as a teenager and working out your life around dealing with that. And then another one that I've been looking at a lot is a kids graphic novel called Elle Deafo. A lot of people have recommended it to me. It's a deaf superhero. And that's all I know about it, but it looks fantastic. And I keep picking it up and putting it down in bookshops. So I'm going to be picking that up. But yeah, those are the ones that I had for that question. So hopefully that answers the person who was looking for recommendations. And for anyone else who hasn't read Elle McNicholl, can we both just say, please do?
Please do.
Because her books are fantastic, and there's a new one out now which I'm going to be buying.
Yes, Like a Curse, sequel to Like a Charm, and they're both fantastic.
Yeah. I'm going to be reading Like a Charm to my children soon, I think, because I feel like they need it. So right, I'm just waking my screen up again so that I can find the next question. So the next thing we were asked, I'm hoping that you're going to have some thoughts, because I'm not brilliant at reading like fiction for grown-ups. I read a lot of children's fiction and not so much grown-up fiction. So we were asked for literary fiction with an exciting contemporary voice along the lines of Sally Rooney or Kylie Reid, people like that.
Yes, I've got a few. Got a few here with me, actually. Some of them may be more or less like the authors in question, but I've got a big pile of them here.
Amazing.
So this is the latest one I've read, just finished reading recently, and that is coming out in, I think next week, 16th of February, but I've managed to get a sneaky proof.
Oh, just in time for Bookshop Crawl, though, so perfect.
Just in time for Bookshop Crawl Day. So hopefully it'll be in the shop by then. And it is the story of a young woman who basically, she's in her 20s and she's basically the one holding the family together. Her father has Parkinson's disease. Her brother is a bit of a flake. Her mother spends most of her time in Ghana. And so she's her father's carer. She's got to be the grown-up, but she's living at home. She's never really had a boyfriend or a relationship. And it's about her breaking out of that role that is kind of imposed on her and trying to find out who she really is. So there's a bit of romance, friendship. There's discussions of working in publishing, of sort of family, race, microaggressions. It's a very, very good book. I devoured it in about a day. But yeah, it was definitely going to stick with me. I think it may be based somewhat on the author's life, judging from some of the things she's been saying in the back of the blurb. But yeah, but it's definitely a novel, and it's so that's a very good.
Yeah, fantastic.
The next one is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel.
I love that cover.
Foyles. Yes, this is an exclusive Foyles special edition. It's sparkling in the light, because that was our fiction book of the year last year, published by Rough Trade Books, tiny publisher.
Yeah.
And they produced these just 1,000 exclusive editions. They're probably all sold out now.
Amazing.
And that is a look on kind of modern life, modern relationships, or I suppose not really relationships, but It's got quite a strong narrative voice, and it's looking at sort of gender relationships, inequality, sort of class and race, and it's got a lot of a focus on the social media age as well. It's quite dark in places. It's quite toxic. It's toxic sort of relationships in there. So maybe not one you want to read to feel all is lovely in the world. Some
not a cozy comfort read.
But it's a really, really well written, really powerful read. I can highly recommend that one as well.
Oh, brilliant. I'll keep an eye out for that.
And then some others, I've got to recommend this one. Again, I've got a proof. The finished copy is beautiful orange book cover with Scrabble tiles and wine glasses on it, and it's written by one of my former colleagues, in fact, Kate Brooke.
Cool.
It's called Not Exactly What I Had in Mind, and I think it has got that sort of Sally Rooney look at relationships. So you've got two flatmates who have got feelings for each other but also don't want to complicate things because they're flatmates, and then there's their parents, sorry, not their parents, one of the girl's sister is trying to have a child and go through IVF, and it's kind of looking at their family. It's got dating stories. It's got kind of really nasty piece of work in one of the people that she meets along the way it's basically about being a young person in London in the modern day. I can recommend that one as well. And then the fourth one I can recommend is Everyone. It's got a lovely cheery title.
I love that title.
Will Someday Be Dead by Emily Austen.
I've looked at that a lot based on the title alone.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So it's about a young woman, and she is so lovable. She gets herself into all sorts of sticky situations, because she is just too gentle and soft-hearted to disappoint people. And she's just always got in the back of her mind, she wants people to be happy. She suffers with depression, anxiety, just it's funny, but it's heart-wrenching, and it's really beautiful, and I found it quite relatable as well.
I'm gonna have to pick that up. I've been resisting it for a while, but I think I'm
please do. Yeah. It's out in paperback now.
Brilliant.
It's the paperback's got a
paperback.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I have actually just thought of one I could recommend for this. I mean, I've not read Sally Rooney yet. I own them, but I have not read them yet. But I did recently read People Person by Candice Carty-Williams.
Oh, yes.
Which is really good. I really liked Queenie last year when I read that as well. But this one is about a family that it's the father, and he has all these kids with all these different women, and he introduces them to each other when they're teenagers in a park, and it's just like, these are your siblings, like and then it's, flashes forward, a big event happens and that sort of brings them together in a weird way, and they spend the book trying to work out their sort of situation and their feelings towards each other and their father and stuff like that. And it's really good. She's really really pacey, immersive writer. I really like reading her stuff. So that's my one adult fiction book I've read in the last 6 months or so. So I have next a request from my son, actually, who is very keen to find more books with female scientist type characters in them, because he's noticed that there aren't very many. We've got a couple of picture books. We've got Ada Twist Scientist and Izzy Gizmo that have like girl characters that are scientists or inventors or whatever. But yeah, he's quite keen to find more, and it seems to be quite tricky to find that sort of specific requirement. So
there's only a couple I can think of. the main one I can think of is called The Matilda Effect by Ellie Irving. And it's about a girl who's really into inventing, and she's devastated when she doesn't win at the science fair, and she's definitely gets the impression that it's because she's a girl. They don't think that she can have done all this work herself because she's a girl. And then it turns out that her grandmother also had was also a famous, or would have been a famous inventor if a man hadn't taken the credit for her invention. And so that one I think would be just,
that sounds fantastic. Yeah.
There's various different non-fiction books about women in science or women in different fields. I think there is one that's just called Women in Science, but unfortunately I can't remember who publishes it now. And the other one I could sort of think of, it's not really women in science explicitly spelled out in that way, but the mother in How to Be Brave studies ducks.
That's a very good point, actually. He has read How to Be Brave. We've got How to Be True to read next.
So she's obviously so she's a biologist with a special interest in ducks, which is great. So it definitely counts. It's much more comic sort of story rather than about women in science, but
I think it definitely does count. And the other one I was suggested previously when I asked this question was the Northern Lights series, which has I mean, one of them's not a fantastic example of how to be a good woman in science, but there's
just also a woman in science.
There's a couple of women in science in that series, so that's another one. But thank you for those, because I will check those out for him. And this brings us to our final question that we have for now, which is from someone who really loves memoirs and wants some recommendations of more brilliant memoirs to read, please.
Okay, I'm hoping these count because they are definitely memoir-ish, but also I guess go into the vaguely nature and vaguely travel and vaguely self-help sort of genre. And I'm currently obsessed with Catherine May.
Me too.
So she's got a new book out in March, so very soon. Not quite in time for the
one to look out for though.
But it's called Enchantment, and it's all about basically rediscovering beauty in the little things, finding meaning in rituals and in nature, and it's specifically set during the pandemic when everyone, so the tagline is reawakening wonder in an exhausted age. So and it's basically about her doing that. So whether it's going swimming in the sea and her relationship with that, whether it's finding sort of sites with kind of spiritual significance, like it's near you in Canterbury. Apparently there is like a healing well hidden away somewhere in Canterbury. Do you know it?
I have heard of it. I haven't found it myself.
She finds but that. It sounds like it's quite tucked away, but then it's like got the four elements. So you've got air, water, air, fire, and earth, and it's absolutely beautiful. It really kind of helped me. So it's sort of memoir, but it's also sort of.
I think that counts. I'm definitely putting that on my wish list.
So she previously wrote The Electricity of Every Living Thing and Wintering, which again there'll be, I guess the most of a straightforward memoir is this one, and that's about how she set herself a task to walk the Southwest Coast Path. And
why haven't I read that one yet?
That was, I think, her first book, and she kind of uses that journey and tries to figure out doesn't make sense, why she finds things so hard, and along the way she discovers that she's autistic, and that sort of explains why the world is so overwhelming for her. So it's kind of all about her being a mother, and the nature and her diagnosis, and just trying to find make sense of the world.
Sounds great.
So I suppose those would be my the ones that are closest to hand at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just going to take this opportunity, because I never miss an opportunity, to recommend that everybody reads Gears for Queers, please. Which is a like travel memoir type thing of two people who cycle tour through Europe.
I read that one recently as well.
Yeah, it's
the last couple
brilliant.
of weeks.
And it makes you want to like visit places, and also they're very open about their mental health. Going through this experience of like a lot of wild camping and not having a lot of amenities around, and kind of really physically draining days and stuff like that. So
when it's just all too much,
exactly,
it's not like an idealistic cycle ride where everything's perfect. You know, they do have days where they have massive rows and they can't agree, and things are just too much, and physically, mentally, emotionally just exhausting, because they're going out cycling without anywhere to kind of hide away for months. Which sounds kind of terrifying.
It does a very
interesting way of seeing Europe, and
I think it's a very different way to experience
I would do in small amounts, but I'm not really a cyclist, and I'm not really a wild camper, and I like to have a bed too.
I read books about it, then I can feel like I've done it vicariously.
I can recommend that one as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very much. That's amazing. We've got some amazing recommendations there, and hopefully everybody who asked questions will be happy with our answers and find some great stuff to read.